Welcome everybody. So this week our Torah portion is Vayigash. He approached as we continue on with the story of Yosefs. Now, as we begin the portion, we can see that Judah pays respect, as Yahweh tells us we should, to those who are over us, and in doing so, Judah responds with, "For you are like Pharaoh, you see." Both could have had Judah killed, are imprisoned, are even hanged, are tortured, are beheaded, such as with the cupbearer and the bread maker situation. Now, Judah reminds Yosef that they are honest and not spies, are even thieves. How? How did he do this, though? By recalling their true and just ways. That as Yosef had requested for them to prove all that they said was true, by bringing back their youngest brother to settle this matter, that they in fact did do that already. "With you will not see my face again unless your brother Benjamin is with you." And did they not return with Benjamin? Yes. Now, likewise, Judah took this opportunity to instill into Yosef that if he keeps Benjamin for this matter as a prisoner, that their father Israel would just die from health deterioration and sadness from the loss of his only remaining Ben from his beloved wife, and that he took responsibility for his younger brother and for his safe return. So, Judah was also letting Yosef have the opportunity to think for himself, do you also want to kill another person who is innocent in this matter, which will be his father? Because if he kept Benjamin, then this would also kill his father. Now, at this point, Judah begged Yosef to let him stay instead as a slave for the place of Benjamin, and to let Benjamin return back to their father Yisrael, because he couldn't bear to go back to his father without Benjamin and to see the loss and despair of his father's face, as he would be overcome by anguish. Now, here's where Yosef has now seen the spiritual and loving growth of his brethren, that they care so much of their father's well-being, along with the love that they had also contained deep inside, and that flows so much to the outside for their youngest brother Benjamin, and whom had the same mother as Yosef himself, who we could say was Yosef's replacement to his father Yisrael, as being the only remaining son of Rachel. Now, love was all around, because truly, at this point, the presence of Yahweh was within them and around them, the Shekinah, that Yahweh was about to save his people Israel. That was a pivotal point in Yahweh's master plan, and what follows next is simply proof. You see, Yosef could no longer control his feelings, that he started to cry out in front of all of them and all that were around him, including his servants and attendants, and all including his brothers, such as when Yeshua cried out to Yahweh, the Abba, and said, "Forgive them, Abba, for they do not know." And just as Yeshua reveals all to those that are truly his, right now Yosef revealed to his brothers who he, in fact, truly was. He said, "I am Yosef, your brother, in whom you sold into Egypt. But don't be sad that you sold me into slavery here, or angry at yourselves, because it was Yahweh who sent me ahead of you to preserve life." That Yahweh sent him ahead of them as a trustworthy and loyal servant to ensure that they will have descendants on earth, and to save your lives in a great deliverance. Just as Yahweh sent Yochanan ahead of Yeshua to prepare the way for him, and how he sent Yeshua during his first coming to show us all the true way and light and give us true deliverance and a way to Yahweh and to fulfill the law and to give us high life. Now Yosef knew that it was all Yahweh's plan. As Yeshua said to Pontius that had Yahweh not willed it, he would not be where he was placed. And Yosef said, so it was not you who sent me here, but in fact it was Yahweh. And he made me a right hand to Pharaoh, lord over all his household and ruler over the whole land of Egypt, which we can also see was a foreshadow of Yeshua, who would have rulership over all of his Father Yahweh's creations and things, being on the right hand of Yahweh. Now, what followed was that Yosef told his brethren to return to their father, Yisrael, and to tell him of how Yahweh fulfilled and blessed them through Yosef, and to return with all that they had to be restored and sustained by Yahweh's blessings in the land of Egypt, and have Yeshua our salvation. So Yisrael took his journey with all that he had and was provided with. And when he came to Beersheba, the well of 7, or we can say the well of completeness, he offered sacrifices to Yahweh. Now, at that night in a vision, Yahweh spoke to Yisrael, and he answered him, Hanini, here I am. As a servant of Yahweh or Yeshua always should. And Yahweh told him, I am Yahweh, the Adonai of your father. Don't be afraid to go down to Egypt, because it is where I will make you into a great nation, thus fulfilling the promise in the covenant. And that he would not only go with him to Egypt, but that he would also bring him back from there, that Yosef shall close his eyes. So from there, Yisrael took all of his people to Egypt. Now it states that Yosef fell on Yisrael's neck and wept when he seen him. And as the sages say, that this is because as Yosef approached Yisrael, he was saying the Shema, as only Yahweh, the one and only Adonai in God, could do all of this for his people. Now, all the people that arrived in Egypt, including Yosef's 2 sons, were a total of 70 people. Now, why is this 70 so significant? Well, let's see. Well, the book of Daniel's prophecy is how many weeks? 70, right. Also, in the book of Enoch, the book of the watchman, the 70 generations where Azazel and his servants were made captive by the archangel under the order of Yahweh before comes the day of judgment and their condemnation. That was 70 generations. Now also 7 is the number for completeness, and 10 was also the generation of man that lived before the great flood, which is 7 times 10, 70. The complete generation of man, as Yeshua said, that the tribulation times would be as in what? The days of Noah. Just a little something to possibly think about with all of this. As to also remember that there were 10 commandments, as did you follow them before the time of completeness. So during your time right now, while you're living and giving to live and to serve Yahweh, did you do what he asked you to do? Did you follow his commandments? Did you keep his laws? Did you keep his Sabbath? Did you observe his holy feast days? Did you observe his full moon days or new moon days? Now Yisrael, after all that time, and with all them things that had passed, lived in the land of Egypt for 17 years. Now they acquired possessions in it and were productive, and their numbers multiplied greatly as Yahweh said it would. Thus Yahweh fulfilled this covenant. Another one. So many blessings from him. Now you see, we can learn a lot from Yehuda. You see, he was not a true righteous man at first, before the situation of Yosef being sold, but just as for all of us, because as we, like most others, are not born perfect and just, as we face both inner struggles of the neshama and of the nefesh, the flesh, but later on, if we strive hard with the guidance of Yeshua, well, we could overcome these things and truly become righteous as Yehuda did. As his Abba, Yisrael, recognized in Bereshit, or Genesis 49 verse 9, when he stated, Yehuda is a lion's cub from prey. My Ben, you have elevated yourself. He stooped down, he crouched as a lion and a lioness, who shall raise him up. Well, Yahweh raised him up, and we through Yeshua come from the tribe of Yehuda, the lion. Nor did Yahweh allow Yosef to marry an Egyptian woman, is what was said by the sages of the time. And we'll talk a little about that right now. Well, with Yosef's wife, Osnes, who gave her this name, and who was she? Well, the Targum Yonasan tells us that she was born to Dinah, Yaakov's daughter. Her father was Shechem, who had violated Dinah. Now, Parasha de Eliezer states that Dinah returned to her family with her daughter, and her brothers were unable to tolerate this product of sin. Now, Yaakov made her an amulet upon which he inscribed Osnes, daughter of Dinah, daughter of Yaakov. Hence the name Osnes is derived from Asan, tragedy, implying that she was the child born of a violent tragedy. Now Yaakov attached the amulet to a necklace which she wore around her neck. She made her way down to Egypt, where she was brought up and adopted by Potiphar and his wife. When Yosef became viceroy, all of the young maidens stood on top of the wall as the new leader rode through in triumph. They all threw gifts to the new viceroy. Now Osnes was no different. Since she had nothing else to offer, she threw down her amulet. Now Yosef caught the amulet, read its inscription, and knew that it belonged to Osnes, his niece. Now when Pharaoh insisted that he marry an Egyptian girl, Yosef chose Osnes. Thus, the girl who had been named for a violent tragedy became the mother of two tribes in Kal Yisrael. Just a little more for you to take in and think about. Now, as we move on to our Haftorah portion, you need to understand that Yahweh is the true rider, and thus he will unite all of his people as one, no longer two nations, but thus he will take two peoples and have them as one, as two sticks that join one another to become one stick. As we can say this for all the separations of churches and faiths, Yahweh will have all join to the true faith and followers of his true laws. As they shall not defile themselves anymore with their idols such as celebrities, money, vanity, cars, jewelry, pictures, action figures, and their detestable things, or with any of their transgressions. Yahweh will save them from all of their backslidings, in which they have sinned, and will cleanse them, and we shall be his people, and he shall be our Adonai. that we will have one king over us, Yeshua through David, that we will walk in his rules, commandments, and be careful to obey his statutes, that Yahweh will make a covenant of peace with us, in whom is Yeshua, which stands for salvation. Now, as we move into our new covenant portion, as true love for Yahweh and faith is the key to healing, Yeshua saw that the invalid man was in need of healing. Yeshua seen his light from afar and how no one helped him. Just as the many rejected Yeshua at his time, so he made his way to him and healed him by his faith to believe that he could take up his bed and walk. Why? Because he felt the Shekinah of Yahweh with Yeshua, the presence, the glory of Yahweh. Because you have to understand that whoever hears Yeshua's voice and believes Yahweh will have eternal high. For if you act on and listen to Yeshua and Yahweh, you will have eternal life or resurrection of life. But if you disobey or go against it, you will have to go to the resurrection of what? Judgment. As we must always seek the will of Yahweh and not of ours or man's. All the writings of Yahweh from the former prophets were the leading to Yeshua, as it was him that they all spoke of. Now, many reject to show devotion and follow Yeshua truly, instead to follow the ways of this world. As Yeshua came in his Father's name, but you do not receive him, but another comes in his name and you receive him, which is a false gospel that teaches you to celebrate man's holidays instead of Yahweh's holy days and feast days and new moon days and Sabbaths. And that the law was nailed to the cross instead of listening to Yahweh's true gospel that states otherwise, and to keep a Sunday Sabbath instead of Yahweh's true Sabbath, which is from Friday sunset until Saturday sunset. And now we will have our Aaronic blessing. May Adonai bless you and keep you. May Adonai cause his face to shine upon you and be gracious to you. May Adonai lift up his countenance upon you and give you shalom. This has been a weekly Messianic Torah portion from Following Yeshua Ministries. For more information or for help, please visit www.followyeshuanow.com.